Are we pushing buttons?
I'm ready when you are.
I'm pushing buttons.
Brought to you by some guys on the internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
With your hosts, Jason the Bruce,
You guy!
George the Yang,
I hope you are all entertained by my inaptitude.
Jason aka Major Socks.
We've been doing this and talking about various stuff. One of the stuff.
Now sit back, relax, and get tabled.
Hello, future people, and welcome to Getting Tabled with your host, the Bruce.
Hello, folks. I've come forward in time from my past self. I've gone back to my 30s. Yep, I'm here. We're also here with the main man. George is now the only bearded man on the podcast because we have Major Socks.
Yes, and I can't have one of those. So, yes.
You're not allowed to have one of those.
I can have one of these, but my wife will say no.
This
so
is the
just
first
clean.
time in a decade where I have shaved and I have not immediately been shamed by my friends online. I was so waiting to tell all of them to get screwed.
And we got George.
Who?
Who's probably frozen in Wyoming of no man's land.
No, it's not that cold yet. We're only at like 17.
It's not
Yeah,
that cold
only.
yet. It's only freezing.
Right? Real quick, we have a little thing to say. This episode is sponsored by Valhalla Hobby. Use code GT2305 to get 5% off any order over $100. That's code GT2305 at valhallahobby.com.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
And we are starting off with a piece of news that I hear is putting Socks to sleep. He's not excited about this
Oh, I'm
whatsoever,
not excited
are
at
you,
all
Socks?
about this one. So, yeah, I'm going to just shut this off. No, it's actually Armored Clash. World Cradle Studios, as you guys know, I'm a war host. They have announced that Armored Clash will be coming out sometime next year. They haven't set a date yet, but it is in the early alpha beta testing. I myself am going to be one of those play testers, so I can't say much about it. But on the Facebook post, some of the comments, one person was asking if it was going to be a Kickstarter. No, it's going to be a general release. So no Kickstarter, general release to the public straight out from the gate. So that's straight from War Cradle as well. So looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to playtesting it here soon. I've already started reading over the rules, and I'll be getting some of the unit stats next week, I've been told, so I can start playtesting it and help develop this game a little bit more. So
I think part of the benefit of War Cradle is because they're owned by Whaling Games, they have that financial backing.
agreed.
Like they're large enough that they don't need to crowdsource. And I'm not saying this to shame other companies that do decide to do this with everything. It's just like that they appear to be a company that just they have enough backing that they don't need it. They've got they've got the ad revenue from on tabletop. That there's enough backing there that it's not really a thing that's required.
Real quick question: is this just going to be like the land version of Dystopian Wars?
Yes. So in Dystopian Wars, you have ships and aircraft that can land troops and ground vehicles into Dystopian Wars. So yes, this is now the land version, epic scale.
So the next statement of that is if that's the case, then there is no reason, in my opinion, to kickstart that because that was already an original part of the game.
Yeah,
and they're just finally getting around to re-releasing it with their rule set and sculpts. So
correct. Martin Era Games had some a ground version to their version of Dystopian Wars as well, and so they're just taking some of the old molds and sculpts and redesigning them to how they want them, and then revising the rules to correlate with how War Cradle is writing the rules for Dystopian Wars as well. There is talk of combined battles where you can have half of it Dystopian Wars and half of your battle be Armored Clash.
That's
of some
probably
sort.
the part that makes me tilt my head the most, because in the original version of Dystopian Wars, that was the original goal, and it never worked. The community completely abandon that because the game just didn't work that way. So it'll be interesting to see if they can fix that problem. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just like acknowledging that's probably the biggest challenge they've got.
Yeah, from what I've heard from that too, it when they did that, because the original Dystopian had air, land, and sea, and when they started bringing all three together, it started to make it too complicated.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing this. In this next part of the news that we have is the Dystopian Industrial Set piece of terrain that they've announced. It's actually coming out January timeframe, and it is 10 mil scale. So this will actually work with Drop Zone Commander as well, and so that can kind of give you the idea of what kind of scale they're basing Armored Clash with. Is it's going to be 10 mil scale for their terrain, and it's modular as well. So this is a resin modular pieces of terrain. So I probably will be getting one of these in the future, just so I can see it on the table, but then try it out my Dystopian or Drop Zone stuff as well.
I thought these buildings were 10 mil scale because they mentioned
They are 10.
Legion Imperialis.
That's what he said.
It's like 15
Yeah.
mil scale. Legion is obviously.
You're
10
right.
mil
You're right.
then.
15 mil. I'm thinking of. I was thinking of my some of my other stuff.
Yeah, because I'm thinking,
But-
hang on, that's not right. Because it says 15 mil here. Because one thing I was going to
You're
say
right.
about the previous story is that we know what the scale is going to be. It's going to be 15 mil scale because this very next article basically tells us that.
Yeah.
There's also another story that we're going to be talking about later on of another game that's coming out next year in 15 mil. So there's quite a few things that's kind of rolling out at this stage.
Epic scale is becoming the new focus on a lot of ground warfare. We've seen it with Warlord Games putting out epic scale Napoleon and Civil War for their Black Powder stuff, and obviously we got Games Workshop doing their stuff as well.
Imperialis.
So, yep.
It's probably worth noting because there is going to be a percentage of the community out there that's going to be going, "Oh, they're just copying," but like there is very strong evidence to prove that that's just simply not the case.
I was going to say there's been a lot of requests from Games Workshop of bring back Epic.
Oh, no. The
Yeah.
other way around. The accusation from certain members of the community will be that everybody is copying Games Workshop, but that's just not true.
Now,
This was part of the original Dystopian Wars that has existed for a long time, and was always coming. It was just a question of when they decided to do it. And we knew we have known that this was coming. They just hadn't announced it yet.
Yeah, their primary focus once they got the IP for Dystopian Wars was to focus on that, get that up and running.
Well,
and
Dystopian
then-
Wars was always the bigger name in that original game. That's where
Franchise,
most
yep.
of the money was.
yeah.
Like I said, like the problem with the original was that you couldn't really play it the way it was intended. It's just kind of the way it was. I do like these buildings though. These
They do look
buildings
nice.
are gorgeous.
Yeah, they've got a very unique, like the it's modern, but it's not too modern, but it's not trying too hard.
And it's not true steampunk either that you would sometimes see as well.
Right? Yeah, like
Even
it's got that. It's trying, but it's not trying too hard. Yeah. Oh, what's the word? Oh, I can't think. It's the Soviet industrial buildings.
Like Eastern
You know, where-
European type.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that feel, but with a little bit of like the extra like filigree and the pillars and stuff like that. So it's not just boring Eastern Bloc.
So it's an entirely modular terrain set. I thought this was resin. It's not resin. It's hard plastic.
Yeah,
it is
it's
plastic.
plastic.
Why did you say resin earlier?
I thought I may have read somewhere or heard somewhere that was, but you're right, it is plastic.
Yeah.
No, it's down there in the scale. It says 10 mil
Oh, okay.
under product specifications. 10 mil.
So they're just deciding that they're just mentioning the other games because, well, I guess it's close enough, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, 5 mil, 10
versus
mil,
15
or-
mil doesn't really matter.
15
that
mil,
much.
10 mil is not going to be much difference
Yeah.
between. So
Yeah. I
That's like what-
kind of really like these buildings. I think they're good, and I like them even more now that I realise that they're hard plastic, because how could you not like them more now? Hard plastic is superior. Moving on. We got some Infinity stuff coming. So this is the January pre-orders. We're probably not going to touch on these for a long time. We're starting here with the Diggers, the Armoured Prospectors. So these appear to be miners that have gone on to the battlefield. The thing I find interesting about the use of the name Digger is that this is actually a military term from Australia, which I find very interesting, because, well, that's where I'm from. But the paint scheme and everything does not appear that they're from this part of the universe. So that confuses me a little bit. I do like the model, though. The whole come get some on the neckline is kind of nice.
It's giving me a Exo Squad meets Aliens
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, I can see
vibe.
that. Yep, I can see that 100%. The next one, the Highlander Cateran, or Kateran, kind of feels to me like some of the original older Infinity stuff, but with the detail that we're getting in the modern game. Because, like, with the skirt and everything, it kind of, like, harkens back to that. Like, there used to be the very strong anime where it was kind of a little bit uncomfortable, but this is very tastefully done.
I'm also going to politely correct you that it is a kilt, not a skirt, because she is a Highlander.
Well, that is true, yes. But I was more talking about the item of clothing in respect, not
Sure.
style. Yes.
Sure. No,
No, actually, I'm still wrong. Anyway. Also, it depends on how you paint it. I mean, you don't have to paint it with tartan. I mean, if you have
true.
a brain, you probably will avoid doing that.
I was going to say, yeah, unless you have a personal like vendetta against yourself, you're not going to paint that.
There are
No,
people
I
that
don't
are
have
good
personal
at it.
vendetta
I'm
against
not one
myself.
of them.
I would paint mine with my McGregor tartan if I were to get one. Colors.
All you need to do is go to the store and buy tartan paint. It's not that hard. It'll take a while to find it, but you go to the store. It's right.
And then you
next
just
to
brush it on.
It's right next to the striped paint. They put them together, so you just need to look until you find them.
Good luck with that.
I might get hate for that. Coming up next, we got the Lizard Squadron. So this is something that we saw previewed about 2 months ago, roughly. So this is the new tag for the Nomad. I quite like the look of this thing, actually. It's kind of like a medium-sized tag. It's fun. I like the look of it.
So here's my issue with it, right? So it is Corvus Belli. They do a great job of their tags and how they look and everything like that.
Yep.
And this does look good, and it's just kind of average because it's just like every other single one they've done.
Yeah.
So
Kind of like the high heel.
I was going to say, it's working on high heels, too.
But it's just like there's nothing setting itself apart from the others. It's just you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. You'll also notice this is thermoplastic, so this is the stuff that a lot of people don't like. That the name is skipping my brain right now. Like the little machine that was at Adepticon a couple of years back. Anyway.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Really cheap thermoplastic stuff.
Yeah. Now this next one here, I like.
Yeah.
The Scuda? Yeah, this one looks nice.
This is, I think, one of the best things I've seen them do in a long time. So this is for the Combined Army, which is a force that I don't think they have any models that are bad, honestly. There's been a number of times where I've looked at the Combined Army and thought, I'd really love to paint some of those. But I haven't played with the Infinity stuff that I own, so I'm not going to buy another force. But this thing is, like, I could have a lot of fun painting this.
So everything about the previous one where I said, it looks good, but it looks like everything else. This one is doing what the other one should do. It's like
There's a problem with that argument though, because the other one's
yeah.
also
No,
trying to fit
I
within,
get.
It needs. To
yeah.
fit
No,
within
I
the
understand what
force
you're
it
saying
belongs
too.
to.
Yeah. But this does what I would like to see more from when they're doing their mech like stuff, because they all have that very same similar feel. This, yeah, and obviously you've got the insect quality, so it's easier to differentiate it. But
The benefit of the combined army is that they are a combined army of different races, so you can do kind of anything that you want with it. Within reason, obviously. We also have the Druze Shock team that just feel like this is just your nasty, like this isn't military, this feels like they're mercenaries. These are the nasty,
I was gonna say more mercenary than anything.
yeah, like these just have a really dirty, gritty, nasty look to them. The guy there with his cigar in the background is ironically seems to have the same face as the guy with the ponytail in the front, but the hair's different.
those
If you look at
helmets,
them, the face
Yeah.
itself is the same.
Yeah.
What's your problem with the helmets?
nothing. They just seem really similar to something else that I can't place it.
Yeah,
It's-
it does kind of give me the feel of something I've seen before, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, it's
I mean, they are very heavily anime based, so it could just be that it's been inspired by something like. Actually, you know what it reminds me of? Crude.
maybe that's it. Yeah, that does give me
Just
a feel
the
of
shape
Kroot
of
kind
it,
of.
because they
Like
have like the dreadlocks coming out the back, which are actually.
If the Tau were actually nice and gave the Kroot, Tau armor.
I don't know. That's what jumps out at me, but
Maybe.
there's definitely
Yeah.
something about it.
Yeah, there's something about it for sure.
And then the last one we have is the Myrmidons. That's what I'm going to call them. And
The
these
Mandalorians.
that is kind of the vibe.
Yes.
It's kind of it almost looks Greek, sort of. As well.
Yeah, it's yeah. There's a
I
little bit
agree.
of Greek influence there too. That's a very
Spartan,
the helmet shape. Yeah,
very much Spartan-esque.
So yeah, that's the previews. That's what's coming up in January. These ones are for the LF. So the LF is the one that's like it's all controlled by the computer and da 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 da. It's totally the good guy and not totally ruining everything at all. Coming up next is a story that I suspect you guys aren't going to have a lot to say about. This is old news at this point. This got announced the day of our previous podcast, but it was after we recorded. So there was the Black Friday sales that went on. We're not talking about that because it's all over and done with at this stage. At the bottom of this news, for someone like myself, was some news that's very, very exciting. So, at the end of the article, we'd announce we're pleased to share some exciting news with our friends in Australia and New Zealand this Black Friday. Understanding your concerns about shipping costs and delivery times of our products and limited editions, we're embarking on a new approach. In partnership with a local shipping provider in Sydney, Australia, we're trialling a new method to make our deliveries to you more efficient and cost-effective. Orders placed from Australia and New Zealand will now be shipped from this Sydney location, which we hope will significantly reduce shipping costs and waiting times. Orders placed during this sale won't begin shipping until December 4th. This is an initial trial, and we're keen to see how it improves the shopping experience with us. Your feedback on this new approach will be crucial in shaping our future shipping strategies. Thank you for your ongoing support. So, why is this a really big deal?
because y'all get screwed on shipping costs.
Well, specifically with Weird don't do sales per se at Black Friday. They do a whole series of alternate models that you can only buy during certain events. Now, they're not only at the event, these are things that you can order from anywhere, but obviously that means you've got to pay for postage. And people from Australia would buy them, but the shipping costs would at best be double the price.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, it would at best double the price. So you're paying at least double what everybody else is.
Yeah.
I was not able to order anything this year because I'm kind of a little bit tight at the moment. Things are... December's one of those months. So I didn't actually get to try this for myself. There's also a thing where if you spend a certain amount of money, you do get free models and stuff. But this is a really, really big deal because we didn't really have a lot of options to reduce this. It's a problem for our country because we're so far away. It's just something we have to deal with. And none of this is criticism towards weird. None of us have ever been nasty towards weird about it. We all understand why it's the thing.
Yeah.
They are stuck behind a wall in America, and unfortunately your postal system in America is not a very good one. I'm sorry, but
no,
it's not.
It's great in America, but getting
stuff
to
in
other
and out
countries.
from-
But only for people in America.
Yeah.
It's terrible for everybody else. So this is hopefully something that's going to help fix that problem. This has been something that we have needed for a long time. We do get access to some of this stuff at retail, but only like your regular releases, and it's usually like a month or so behind everywhere else. It's really slow to get out here. So hopefully we might start seeing this stuff actually arriving more on time as well. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. Hopefully the Black Friday sales did well for them, because obviously if it didn't, there'll be less incentive for them to continue doing this. I know one of our local groups did a fairly large order, but I guess we'll have to see with the rest of it. Moving on. Wargames Atlantic are doing some more 3D printable models. The first one is probably the one that jumps out at me the most. We got some Aztec Eagle Warriors, and I'm sorry, but what is not to love about Aztec Eagle Warriors? It's not something you see a lot of. These kind of feel like, because they tend to aim for like the historical market and for a market that's like the very simple sculpting. So you will notice that these kind of fit within that simple, like these are not overly stupidly detailed. These look like a fairly standard miniature. But I actually really like these. You'd have to be careful how you paint them, because you could accidentally make it look like it's male armor or something if you're not careful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, they're wearing too much armor, in my opinion.
I haven't seen one in real life, so I can't really comment on that. Are you thinking that they've gone too oversimplified?
Yeah, I think in the effort to, just make it so they can make a mini real quick, I think they've... Because typically the Central American cultures, they didn't wear a lot in the way of armor because they didn't need to, because there was not a lot in the way of slashing weapons available until the Spanish showed up.
I'm pretty sure this is not supposed to be armor. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be feathers. Hence my comment about you'd have to be careful how you paint them. Just because the detailing on those feathers doesn't look like it's meant to be male. It looks like it's meant to be the bright coloured feathers. I could be wrong. I mean, in saying that, it's your miniature. You can paint it however you like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's also another thing, too, is just like, what is the accurate portrayal? Because all we have to go off is what Spanish conquistadors told us. We don't have... They weren't big on history like Europe was.
No. That end... I mean, there is stuff that survived, but there's not really a lot of it, because they
Not a whole lot.
kind of ruined a lot of it. Thanks, Spain. Yeah, I don't know. I really like this. There is a couple of other things that's coming as well. We've got World War I Russian Cossacks, which is maybe one of the most random release things I've seen in a long time. Like, this just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I kind of love them for it. I think the detailing these are nicer, personally.
Part of me just wants to take a whole bunch of the Cossack heads with the Cossack hat and make a Space Marine army with that.
Yeah. You'd probably have to size them up a little bit. But I like the fact that they have done that so that you could use them for whatever you want.
I think it's kind of fun that they've got a guy wearing a gas mask.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it's World War One, so that was
exactly
a thing, yeah. We also have some Napoleon, so some Napoleonic stuff. So Napoleon on 13th Vademare. That's my attempt to say that out loud. So this is a cannon that's for the Napoleonics. Obviously, if you're into Napoleonics, then this is something that you're going to want a lot of because, well, cannons were kind of the thing. It was that, and people standing in lines taking 5 minutes to shoot things at each other. I'm exaggerating.
While horse
obviously.
cavalry or
Yeah. I'm
flanking
just
them?
making jokes about Napoleonic warfare. And then finally, we have some ancient Indian archers, and maybe I'll go back and correct myself. This is the most random thing I've seen in a release for a long time. This is something that I'd never even considered, but something that we should be seeing more of.
Those heads are way off scale wise.
yes.
Are they?
Go look
yeah,
at
no,
like
they are. Yeah,
an
true.
assembled mini.
Yeah,
That's like
that's cartoonish. Oh, the second one's not quite so bad.
Well, and their necks are like way long.
Yeah,
On
no,
some of
it's the
them.
necks. It's the necks, not the heads. Yes, good call. I would reduce the size of those heads or the necks. The necks are too long. No, it's the necks.
I would
That's
shrink
why
the
the
neck
standing
by
ones are
about a
worse.
millimeter or two
the head
based on the
is
scale.
the head
crouching
is
one
too
doesn't
big.
look
The
as
neck
bad.
is too long.
I mean, there is a problem with scale where certain things, like this has obviously
Yeah.
been done at a heroic scale too. That might be part of the issue there. Heroic scale, when you have someone that's barely clothed, does make certain things more obvious. But yes, those necks are way too long. I love the fact that they're doing it though. I really do. And you can easily play
Yeah.
around with this in your software and change what you need to get it to work.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm sure there's an extremely important war in history that I don't know a lot about, where the Indians were fighting against, let's be fair, it's going to be England, because of course it would be. No, they're fighting the Persians. It says here in the description. After
So that would
Alexander's defeat
be
of the Persians, this army
Pakistan
moved
area?
south to conquer the present-day Pakistan and India. Yep. Interesting. Moving on. I might just hand over to you for this one, George, because
so
this has been plastered all over Facebook of late. I've seen this so many times, so I know why you want to talk about it. The only thing I will say straight up is that this is one of about 500 different versions of this that you can find right now.
So it's interesting you say that because this is the first time I've seen it today. Like today was the first time I saw this.
Oh, it's plastered all over. I think I probably
Yep.
get more of this because I'm looking at stuff for the
Sure.
because I look at stuff
So-
for the podcast all the time. They think
That
that
makes
that's
sense.
why I'm looking for it.
Yeah. So this one, it's hobby furniture like Hobby Zone, Artie Station, the Canadian, all the numerous other ones that are out there. This one's 3D printable though, that's really caught my eye because you start shipping that NBF stuff and it starts getting expensive.
Yeah.
Right, Bruce?
It can be,
I mean,
yeah. There are a lot of 3D options for this, some of which are massively cheaper than this, but also they don't have the very pretty details that this does. This
Right,
is
yeah,
gorgeous.
this has got some really good detailing to it. But if you look at the backing on this project though too, we're at $185, right? So that's all the files and all the unlocked goals for this project, which that sounds a lot for STL files. When
It's
you look at
105 Hong Kong dollars though. It's not as much as you think it is.
right, like
It's actually 36. It's $36 in Australia.
About
I
24
didn't even look to see where my currency was at.
It's about
Yeah.
24 US.
If you were paying $135 for this, I would be having a very different opinion.
Yeah, holy
And
crap!
it wouldn't be a positive one.
Okay, so that's even cheaper then.
$135 for this would be a rip-off. It's 3D
Yeah, well-
files, not physical ones.
Well, when I look at how much I've paid for this behind me,
Well,
You
that
know,
yeah, fair enough.
so it's this scale concept. Like, yeah, I have to print the stuff out, but I'm not paying for the shipping, and If I could have found a US reseller for this, the shipping would have just been horrendous. So, but the thing I like about this is, you know, it's something you can print and you don't have to do all the fancy stuff. You can just print it, you know, and it'll give you the same effect as having, you know, the good MDF stuff. Would I do this? Probably not. I'd rather have the MDF because it's simpler to work with, and I'm not tying up my printer for how many months printing this?
I just saw something that I find a little bit interesting.
Oh, what's that?
Go down to the free gifts and look at the
Free
first one, the
gifts.
wet palette.
Oh, I did see that, which I thought was a little interesting too, yeah.
It's completely compatible with RGG V1 foam. It's not just compatible. This is a outright rip-off of their product. That is a rip-off of the red game grass. It looks exactly the same, except they've got this really cool base on it. And I will give them props for the base so that it makes it compatible with the rest of the system. Do RGG make a 3D printable one? No, I would probably argue there's a good reason for that.
Probably because
I don't want a 3D printed wet palette. I just don't.
Yeah.
But you're also getting this for free, so like they can't. But they could have at least put some effort into maybe make so that it was a different round over, or make it so that it's chamfered instead of a round over, or like just something, anything to make it not look like they've just ripped somebody off.
So, but here's the next part of, you know, why I would consider doing something like this, right? So I've had this set up behind me for a few years, and I do want to make some changes, and that involves me going and ordering more components. I have to toss a couple components or do something else with them because of how I've modified them, and they're not going to work. Something like this drawer's not working out. Let me print out this drawer instead.
Yep. Yeah.
So
the other thing I like about this is that you can make this really pretty with pretty much whatever you want. Like you've got all of like these Space Marine and the Orcs and the Fantasy and Aliens, and so like there's so many different things just to make them look slightly different. Ooh, interesting. They're actually using names from Games Workshop. They probably want to change that one that says Space Wolves.
Yeah.
They can get done for that. That's a trademark name. That's why everybody uses generic ones that are very clearly talking about something in particular.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean, this just kind of caught my eye because, you know, for you know, like your case, Bruce, because, you know, everything you would have to get, you're going to pay a premium in shipping just because, you know, it's wood MDF and that's heavy and expensive to ship. You know, whereas some of the 3D printing materials you can locally source at a reasonable price. So
yeah. The reason I'm not personally overly interested in this is that there are several different versions of this. Or like when I said that there's like 50 different versions of this available, go onto my mini factory. They're all over the platform. Like,
oh, I'm sure
there is hundreds and thousands of different versions of this. This is probably one of the better ones I've seen. I'm not going to say it's the best version I've seen. It's definitely the prettiest version I've seen. I like the fact that they've designed it to be very sturdy, but like this is not like they're talking about this like this is the first time somebody's done it, and it's just not. Like it's not even close. But it does look really good, and I really do like what they've designed. It looks really pretty.
Yeah, so it was like I said, it's the first time I've seen something like this pop up on my feed, and you know, again, it's in that realm of, you know, now having a 3D printer, which I now have a bigger 3D printer, and I'll get into that in hobby time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I like what this is. Moving on, we have some Games Workshop news. The first and foremost is arguably the most talked about thing coming out of Games Workshop in years, and it's the fact that their brand new website failed miserably on launch.
Not just on launch, but continued to fail. And
I think
I'll,
part of the problem with this has been talked to death, so I'm not going to sit here and talk about this forever. Part of the problem here from a community standpoint is that this is a move that didn't need to happen. There was a podcast I was listening to a couple of weeks ago where somebody that used to work for the company gave their opinion, and to him, this was kind of one of those things where it kind of screamed as somebody that went into management that needed to prove their place and make their impact. So the decision was made to update the website, which was something that didn't need to be updated. In fact, this current website works less than the old one did. You have none of your 3D scans anymore. All of that stuff is gone. The only thing that this does that the old one didn't is that it doesn't like reload an entire page. It all looks like it's just updating on the front of everything.
well,
It kind of brings
so
everything
so
together.
so here's the next part of it too. It doesn't have the same capability.
No, that's my point.
Yeah. So here's my run-in with this. So I was going to get the holiday box for Leagues of Votann because that was a damn good deal. Here's the problem. I got the email. It's live. You can go order it. Cool. I'm going to go order it. I sat in queue for 25 minutes before I could even access the website.
Yeah.
Which, by the time I was able to access the website, guess what happened?
Everything was
sold out.
It was sold out. Yeah. So the old website, you had to be the first one. You had to click. You had boom, 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 be on top of it, and you had a chance. This one, I didn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
And all
This has
Games
been a
Workshop
PR
support said
nightmare for
was,
Games Workshop. This has not gone well.
yeah, the only thing they could say to me was,
they will never touch on that, but like nightmare. Yeah. This has been nightmare material for Games Workshop. They are going to have to start doing some repair mode.
Because
doesn't work.
As I was trying to say, the only thing customer support, because I emailed them and said, "Hey, I can't get into the website to make an order, and now it's sold out. What the heck is up with this? This is not acceptable." And they're like, "We'll pass this along as blah blah." After I emailed them 3 times, it took 3 times to get a response from them about it too.
Yeah.
So, it's been a cluster, is what it is.
It has not gone well. It has not gone well at all. Games Workshop will obviously never acknowledge that because they never do. But pretty much, I have heard nobody give them a free pass for this. Like even like the strongest of, because I mean, no matter how bad things get, there's always somebody from the fanboy that will turn around and go, "No, it's not that bad. They needed to do this. It needed to be." Nobody has really come to their defense on this.
This website was not needed. There's nothing wrong with the other one.
It's not just that it wasn't needed. It was very clearly launched without being finished is the problem.
That too, yeah.
Games Workshop have a history of releasing apps for their games that never work, right? This is something that they've done continuously to the point where the most recent Warhammer 40k one they released that was working was a really big deal because it's the first time any of them ever have actually worked the way that they were promised to work. Warhammer Plus is notoriously difficult to use. You said that you don't really have any huge issues with it, but from a community standpoint, that is generally the comment that you get.
So
they've done the same thing with this. They've they've half finished something and then launched it before it was ready.
Yeah. I mean, when I say I've had very little issues with Warhammer Plus, my only issue is I constantly have to sign into it.
Yep.
So, but that being said, my electric company, I have to sign in every time. Like, it won't remember my biometrics or anything to pay my electric bill. So, whatever.
I have that with a few things as well.
Yeah.
I don't. When it comes to that sort of stuff, like if you have an option to remember my details, I understand that I have to like re-log in. Like maybe once every couple of weeks or once a month or something. But you should be able to remember at least something. But, yeah, I don't know. In streaming software, like there really is no excuse for it. But
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
On a more positive note. Now, when they previewed this earlier in the year, I was saying I don't expect that we will see this before 2024. But Legions Imperialis is out. Like
It
that's
still
all
says
over
notify
YouTube.
when available.
Well, yes, it's currently sold out because people buy things when they're told. To
Oh,
buy
it
things.
okay. Is that what it? Okay. Well, I suppose it makes sense. As our earlier discussion, this is something people have been wanting. So
Yeah. Like when this was launched, it's currently on sale at $335 in Australia, which at first glance was like, oh, that's actually. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a good deal, but it's better than I expected it to be. There's another side to that story, and you will see the notes there. I'll go through that in a second.
yep.
Like this released at a price it released at a better price than I expected it to. But Socks,
Mm-hmm.
can you read the notes that I put underneath this story? On the prices?
20 pounds. Yep. 200 US dollars should be about $150. 335 Australian dollars should be about 228 Australian dollars.
It's $110 more expensive in Australia than it should be. It's another random product that they've just decided to go, they can pay what we'll tell them to pay. And yes, I know the other side of that argument is, well, yeah, but if you buy it from the third party, you'll get it cheaper. But that's not the point. It's still market manipulation, and it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't talk about it as much as we would like to. We would love to call them out on it every time they do it. But this story is not going to go away. They're doing it again. So, if you're in the UK, you're getting a good deal on this. If you live anywhere else, you're being ripped off.
One of the reasons why I never got into the Games Workshop games. Just too much.
That's why I sent you the quiz, so you guys could, take the quiz to find out what Space Marine faction you should build.
I didn't do
I
it.
haven't even looked at it. Sorry, George.
Also, that's an
actually
old one.
Well, it said I should either be Ultramarines or Space Wolves, and
that's fair.
So,
I mean, George could be a Smurf. That makes sense.
ugh.
He's a Marine. He's not allowed to have a personality. Actually, no, that's Socks is not allowed to have a personality. He's
I was going to say, like, the Air Force doesn't have a personality. The Marine Corps actually has an overabundance of personality.
All right, moving on.
Simon?
George, I'm going to let you talk about. Simon are taking He-Man to not Kickstarter, to crowdfunding again.
They're
making everything available to the UK now that the license that prevented them from doing it has now lapsed. Now, George, I'm going to let you talk.
So they've announced this, and they've specifically said that this is for the Europe and Africa regions, and I guess Middle East for some random reason. I didn't know that was a huge wargaming market. And to echo what Bruce says, Awaken Realms, CMON. I'm trying to look at my shelf here of other stuff. Steamforge Games, Fantasy Flight. They should have put stuff on Kickstarter. It's not the intent of the platform for companies that size.
I didn't think I was going to be allowed to have this opinion. I'm so happy now.
No, I don't disagree with this.
The reason I'm reacting is that George and I literally had an argument about this earlier in the week.
Right, and
literally
so
we had an argument about this.
I'm going to address that. So here's the reason why they're back on a crowdfunding campaign for this. Is because Europeans can, and I guess people in Africa could not get this game shipped to them because of the licensing without going through a third-party relay, which that's more shipping costs, which that's probably, most people probably couldn't do that. There was some people that, they did do that. They did pay the extra money to get shipped to somewhere in the world, in the U.S. mainly, and then it freight forwarded to Europe. That's how they had to get around with it.
I know
so that's
somebody
two
in
shipping
Australia
costs.
that did the same thing with the Archon Studios game, which
Right,
reportedly
exactly.
is a better game, apparently. The miniatures
Really interesting.
The miniatures are certainly better, and by a long margin.
Sure.
The CMON ones don't hold up at all compared to the Archon Studios one.
Yeah, so the reason why this is on GameFound, because they already ran this on Kickstarter, so they really can't rerun it because it has to be a new thing in order for them to bring it back like that. And the reason why they are putting it on GameFound is for all the exclusives, the Box of Power, the terrain stuff. That's not good. It didn't go to retail. They can't just put it on retail and sell this to Europe, because then they'd be violating what they did for the rest of the world of, this is Kickstarter exclusive, it's not going to retail. So they can't sell it at retail in Europe. So they have to crowdfund in Europe in order to offer the game at the same level as offered at the rest of the world. There are 2 extra figures that they're going to release in this Kickstarter that anyone can order. And because they can't just say, yeah, well, yeah, but this is also open to everyone, because they can't just say this is only for European backers now, because it can't do that. So because the license is available here, so yeah. Take it how you will about this. I know you're saying, they're just doing this to get some extra funds. You could argue,
well, it's a business. Of course, they're only doing it to make extra funds. That's
right, but Bruce,
irrelevant.
If the license was available in Europe, they would have already gotten this money too from the original campaign as well. So,
I have serious problems with this, and yes, I have issues with CMON sometimes anyway, but that's actually not really relevant here. This is a game that's already been produced and it already exists. Yes, there's the argument that but Europeans didn't have access to it, so they never had the option to buy it. But at the same time, those exclusives they didn't have advertised were Kickstarter exclusives, which comes with the realization that they're not supposed to be offering them outside of the platform. And they now are. Like, you made the argument that how is that fair to the backers? If they want to buy it, they should have the option of buying everything at the same price that everybody else did. But it's like, well, they already had their option. And depending on who you talk to, it was a better option. But that's, again, irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, this is a game that's already at retail. If they wanted to take it into Europe, there is no reason they couldn't. Does it mean that they couldn't do the exclusive stuff? Yes. Does that suck? Yes. The aftermarket exists. It sucks for the people in Europe, but it does exist. But at the same time, they were supposed to be Kickstarter exclusives, so they shouldn't be offering them on GameFound to begin with. I understand why they're doing it. It's business. Yeah. And, like, CMON can go back on their word and do this. Their fanboys will support them, and that's fine. Like, there hasn't really been a lot of people that's gone grr about this. I think I'm on my own here. But I will die on this hill. This is wrong.
Yeah. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the fact that they're still running it through a crowdfunding campaign of you can only get these through here now as well. Like, it's still not being offered as a retail item. You still have to get it through a platform like this.
As for the 2 extra minis, this is part of their justification, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to buy them, ironically, because I have nowhere to put them. The game is big enough that you don't need any extra minis now anyway. Like, seriously, right? Like, it's ridiculous how much came with this. But it's not going to fit in any of the extra boxes. There's no room for any of them, so they're always just going to be kind of in the way. Unless as part of this they release like a different insert or something, but there's no talk of that yet.
And really, if anything, if they do anything, it should be done like, let me scooch over here like this.
They should be doing like a proper, they should have done that as an actual expansion box.
Like this, like, it's its own little box with its own.
That's what they should have done. It would have made more sense.
Yeah,
and they're probably
I think that's what they're doing.
Buy those 2 minis, but it would look more like a finished product if they had have done just an expansion. Even if it was just an expansion with just 4 characters, or hell, even 2 characters and some bonus.
That's
missions.
What they're doing. They're offering those 2 minis as a this is something new that we're doing with this. So I'm assuming they're going to have it all in a box and everything.
If it comes in a box, then my problem. Well, it's not really a problem. I don't see a reason to get
your disagreement.
Yeah, well, it's not disagreement with the 2 miniatures. I don't have a problem with them doing it. It's me explaining why I don't want them. because
No,
they're two little boxes that don't fit anywhere. If it comes as like what looks like a proper expansion, then that problem goes
that's what I'm
away.
saying. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. If they just say, it just shows up like, okay. But if it shows up in an actual box,
We'll find out
So-
when the campaign goes live. I don't think they've
Which,
actually
yeah,
said when that is. I know it's next year.
no, I don't
I
think
don't know
they
if
have.
It's
all
going to
it
be interesting to
says-
see what happens. Part of me wants to find out now if the rest of the world's going to get access to the Archon Studio one. And I nigh on guarantee I don't think that's going to happen.
So my guess is, was CMON able to do this in Europe now? I'm guessing Hasbro might have pulled the license from them.
Or they just didn't want to pay to renew it. Because they've already,
Or that
they've
too.
already produced the game, so why would they pay for it again?
Yeah.
Because most of these things tend to only have a limited shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
CMON is a company that can probably get more shelf life out of a game like this because they can copy and paste stuff into other games so easily.
Yeah.
Where Archon Studio is a smaller studio and only tend to produce products one at a time, where CMON just love them or hate them for it, but they just kind of produce a large portion of their games is the same game repasted. Not all of them, but a lot of them is Zombicide with a spin. So they have that benefit where they could zombify the He-Man universe, for example.
Which that would be the next, like, oh my god, we have to. I get why people like the game, but
The initial base game is fun, but
yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
Moving on to on tabletop.
Yes. Now, I'm showing this on Tabletop because it actually gives us previews of something that they're doing, that Warp Miniatures are doing on Patreon at the moment. So that on Patreon, they have monthly releases like a lot of companies do. At the moment, they've been doing a battle box for a gnome army. And when I say it's a gnome army, it's your garden
gnomes.
gnome army. And
Awesome.
it's amazing. I want this so bad. This is actually an expansion for an army that they've done previously.
I love the little chariots with the rabbits.
Yes. I love the chariots with the rabbits. I love the fact that somebody has weaponized a flower pot. That is just all kinds of cool.
And a little slingshot, too, with the leaves as the wings on his arms for a glider. And he's got a pointy metal spike on his hat.
So these guys appear to be modeled to resemble goblins because the badges are very clearly supposed to be trolls. That's very clearly what they're modeled to resemble. And your flower pot weapony things very much look like the goblins that spin the bombs around to try to hit people with. That's very clearly what they're going for there. I love everything to do with this. It's so silly in the best way. Like, not everything has to be dark and gritty. Sometimes things can just be fun. The example here is to use them as goblins in Warhammer or Kings of War. That's what makes the most sense, but I kind of want to just see somebody do a game out of it.
I was gonna say, and the best thing is like, because of the way they look and everything, like giving them a grimdark look too would be super easy as well.
Yeah.
Oh, big time. All you'd have to do is make them look goth. Make them look metal turn their beards to look
No.
and...
You gotta be whimsical about it too. Not goth, not metal. No. You have to make them emo.
Yeah, that could work.
The emo gnomes.
There is a whole series of previous ones that they've done for this that you can find on My Mini Factory. I have bookmarked it for something I might look at later. So we'll have a look. We also have... I've opened things twice. there's my next one. We also have a new game box coming from Seb Games. So I've not heard of Void before, but I saw the previews for this and I'm like, this looks interesting. So this is a 2-player starter set for what looks like, I'm just going to say that this is a Warhammer alternative because it's very clearly the market that they're going for. But this kind of feels like it's more first and second generation than it is actual modern day stuff, because it's very clearly going for that old Hammer aesthetic, like the Rogue Trader type aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually getting like proper plastic sprues on this. They're kind of sparse sprues, to be fair. But for a simple, I actually don't mind what I'm looking at here. The artwork on front of the box is pretty. You can kind of do whatever you want with it. There's like a preview where you can get a free mini.
It feels very 1980s, like in the sculpt and the artwork.
Yeah.
And that's what jumps out at. I know there's a couple of companies out there that's kind of doing this at the moment with let's bring back old Hammer as an actual viable product. Because like if you can't compete with the detail and the miniature qualities that you're getting from Games Workshop, why not deliberately go in the other direction? I don't have a lot of nostalgia for the old Hammer stuff. I know that a lot of people do, but it's just not something that's ever really, because I wasn't around at that point, so it doesn't really do anything for me. But I do like what I'm seeing here.
The only thing I appreciate about the old Hammer is the fact that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have and be where we're at now.
Yeah. There are legitimately people out there that prefer the old silly sculpts. I don't quite get that. There are some of the old sculpts that I like, but I don't quite get that, but it's not made for me, so that doesn't matter. But I do legitimately like this. The leader of, I want to say, the regular army troops, I love how stupid he looks, where he's just kind of going, I'm really tough. It makes no sense as a pose, and I kind of love them for it.
Of course, also without the old school stuff too, we also wouldn't have Clarence. So
fair. We also have now. I'm going to partially call out Michelle here, and Michelle's going to know why the moment he hears this. We're talking about Epic Warpath. So, about 3 or 4 episodes ago now, we discussed how Mantic had gone to their community. Because the moment that Legion Imperialis got announced, Mantic were like, well, I don't know if all of this last 3 years of work in this game is going to be worth doing now. Because everybody's going to just assume we're releasing it, because they get accused of that stuff all the time. They got accused of that with Kings of War, when it became really popular at the death of Fantasy, when the game had been around for a couple of years at that point already. They had recently redone a second edition, but the accusations come very quick and fast. They also do kind of borrow ideas and that sometimes. But they were like, well, we don't know if this is actually going to be worth doing anymore. So they went to their community and asked. There was a survey that you could fill out. I did it. I think I shared the link with people as well, saying, hey, give them your thoughts. And clearly the response was, yes, we want you to still do this. So they are still doing that. And they're bringing it to Kickstarter in February, on Valentine's Day, ironically.
Yeah.
So Michelle shared this in one of our private chats recently of like, oh, Mantic are copying Games Workshop again. And I instantly called him on it saying, no, you're just not paying attention. Because we literally discussed this 3 episodes ago. It's nice to know that you're still listening to the podcast. And then he was like, oh, hang on, I do remember that.
So I have to say that's an interesting date they picked to launch the Kickstarter campaign. Do they assume most of their fan base doesn't have plans for that evening and is going to be on Kickstarter like pledging?
Yeah, right.
It might just be that that's just a date that not many other people are launching. So I don't know. This is not a game for me. It's just not a game for me. It's not why I'm talking about it. but I'm very interested to see how this goes. I'm
It's not
very
gonna be one for
interested to
me.
see. Sorry?
Because the one I'm playtesting, it's not gonna be one for me either. Because the one I'm playtesting is the one I'll be getting eventually. So
I actually think the scale of this is going to be smaller too, because this is actually being advertised as Epic, and Epic is 5 to 6 mil, not 15.
yeah,
So
Here's one thing, and I know they've done the asterisks with not final sculpts. That's the one thing I do really like about what I'm seeing. Is you have the one base, and then the 4 bases go into that one base for ease of movement. Like that was one of the things I loved about Warhammer Fantasy was movement trays. Like, here's my entire unit, and then I can wheel it. I don't have to do every single mini.
yeah, there's a reason that people started making them on the third-party market. So yeah, interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'm curious to see more of the sculpts. I mean, yes, not everything is final here, and that's fine. But I'm very interested to see the other armies that come and how they end up looking. Because obviously the issue with smaller scale is that you lose detail. Like it's just a thing. The fact that people still get... Like, one of the complaints about Legions Imperialis was the sculpts being soft. So, well, yes, it's a smaller sculpt. That's kind of what happens. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. We will definitely be following it come February. So,
Indie. Definition. Independent. Type. Slang word. Jargon.
yes, Empires at War are a company making MDF terrain. These guys are based in the UK. And there's a number of different things that we can look at here. I kind of want to... I'm going to skip the paint and storage racks because they look the same as everybody's... Well, they don't look the same, but there's a lot of different versions of those. I want to look at the Old West. I want to look at the Normandy kits. And... Oh, sorry, that's the 15mm Normandy kits. And I want to look at the 28mm Normandy kits as well, just so that we can see some differences, I guess. So, we'll start with the Old West. Oh, and I've accidentally opened the picture and not the link. That was very clever, Jason. And we start looking at like some quite genuine Wild West era buildings, complete with the false front and everything, which I've only recently learnt what the whole false front thing was. I never really understood why they built houses that way. And it was like, it's literally because it's meant to make the house look more impressive than it is. Because obviously when they're all stacked up next to each other, you can't tell.
Yep.
It's kind of really clever. It's also kind of really dumb. But I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, that was totally a thing because it was easier to do just a big old board going higher up than the person next to you to put your sign on, and you stood out more. That's if you there's a video, it was about McDonald's. But if you look at like in the 50s and 60s when like McDonald's had some bright, outrageous buildings, and now they look like depressed 40-year-olds. I feel that shade being thrown at me. But the reason why they did that was to draw the eye to it so you would see it over the competition.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory. And I like the fact that... Because as an MDF building, replicating that is just insanely easy too. Because it's just... It's
a bigger
really
sheet.
Looking at the 28mm Wild West stuff, like there's a couple of things that jump out at me. Like I quite like the telegraph office. I quite like the water tower. But I think my favourite thing on this first page is maybe one of the most dull, because I quite like that Old West train halt kit. Just because it's not something I've seen a lot of. The 45-degree blockhouse is interesting too. I don't know if I like it, but it's interesting. I like the fact that they're doing something different.
Do you know what kind of catches my eye as something like that's a nice little touch that you don't actually see too often?
Mm.
The snake fence.
Okay, yes.
Because that takes no effort to actually build one of those.
Yeah.
Yet it serves its purpose because your oh god, the word, your livestock is dumb. They
Yeah.
see that like, oh, I can't go through that, and it's literally just zigzag stacked, logs, and
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah. On page 2, there are some larger buildings, which is nice. There's like lots of different styles of fences, mainly different lengths and like sets of them that you can build. The old town block and bank and shops is quite interesting. Like it's literally just a really large building. Yeah, I like what we're seeing here. Going back, seeing as yes, everything that I opened was just pictures because I'm an idiot apparently. I want to look at the 15mm Normandy kits. Why? I don't actually know because I'm not really into World War II gaming. But I want to kind of have a look at the smaller stuff compared to the newer stuff because it's kind of a good indication of what a company is able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the other thing I kind of want to point out is the prices of most of these are like fairly on par. Like that they're priced quite nicely. The Ruin stuff, I actually really like that Ruin stuff. The Ruin farmhouse in particular.
It's nice to see building ruins that aren't sci-fi high gothic,
Yeah.
because that seems to be all there is for ruined buildings is sci-fi high gothic.
Yeah, most definitely. The Normandy Bridge is kind of a little, doesn't really do anything for me, but that's fine. It's very clearly replicating an actual bridge that looks like that. It just doesn't do anything for me personally. Yeah, like I said, I just kind of wanted to look at a few things. I don't know if there's anything in particular that you guys wanted to look at. I only just noticed there's Roman kits.
Yeah, the Roman kits kind of look fun. Having seen some old Roman forts.
I was going to say the ones that really caught my eye were down at the below the groupings, and that was the Spanish and Italian buildings, because that's something you don't just see a lot of.
Yeah, that's true.
That's actually what brought me onto this company to begin with, is them being advertised. So I'm going to open the Monastery pre-painted building kit, because this is literally the thing that jumped out at me the first time I saw it, and the reason I decided to cover them. So this thing is a kit that comes with a church, a library, a gatehouse, an accommodation, and tower, and wall sections. And it literally creates essentially a table that you can. It's literally a defense that you can defend in a game. Like, this thing is awesome, and it's all pre-painted, which is even better.
No, and then here's the other part too, because a lot of people forget this because America is just so freaking huge. This also ties in with Wild West because this is the very Southwest America architecture. Yeah. While you had the Wild West wood buildings we were just looking at.
Yep.
Actually, that's the point. Yeah, because not everybody that was going over was from the same part of the world. Yeah.
You go down to Arizona and New Mexico, especially New Mexico. You'll see this type of architecture all over the place down there.
Yep.
Because the Spanish went into Central America, they went up into the Southwest, New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California.
Yep.
All us Caucasians, came from, the East Coast, moving west, and that's where you get the Wild West and the Spanish and all that conflict going in the movies and stuff. And plus, it's architecture you don't see represented in miniatures.
No, it's not, and that's why it's a good shout. It's always interesting to see when a company is doing things that nobody else is. Does it always work? No, of course not. But when it does, it's really good. You can actually buy them unpainted if you want to as well. I didn't actually know.
Yeah, and here's the crazy part. The price difference between painted and unpainted
is not much.
Is like $20.
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all.
Well, it's basically like they pre-painted on the sprue.
Sure,
and they just spray can over it. But it's still extra work.
That's fair.
So that's Empires at War. Like, there's a lot more on this website than what we've looked at, obviously. Like, just down here at the bottom, like gunfight at the OK Corral. There's a new Mob City range. There's old signs for Wild West. Like, there's a lot more that you can find here. But just a bit of a taste. Now, we're going to look at some hobby.
Trim, glue, prime, paint.
I'm confused by your question, Bruce.
What question?
The question about if you haven't done a video paint.
Oh, do you receive paints a few weeks ago
Oh, well.
that you were moaning and
Oh,
moaning about for days on end? How could you not remember this? I was half expecting you to do a video about why you were so upset, and then I was like, well, if you're not going to do one, can you at least talk about it here?
Did I show you why?
In our private chat, yes.
Like, they're completely unmixed.
So George received... Were these kickstarted, or were these just a purchase?
Yeah, these are the Kickstarter airbrush paints from Scale 75. And they
large
showed up,
company that knows better.
and they're completely, and it's not, they are a paint company. This is what they do, and they're unmixed. Like, it's just the squirts of pigment to make the final color into the bottle and shipped.
This, however, George, is not the beginning of why this was such a nightmare for you. Why don't you talk about the rest of it? Like the actual things that annoyed you.
Oh God. Okay, yeah, this. So,
like, seriously, that to be fair, like, paints will eventually separate if you leave them too long, and the fact that they were sitting there for as long as they were, for reasons you're about to discuss, may have played a part in that. But also, to be frank, that doesn't look like it's separated. That looks like it was never mixed to begin with.
Yeah. So here's the next thing. So I received a notification through BackerKit saying your pledge is shipped. Cool. And I paid attention to this one because we are in the cold months. What happens when paint freezes? It's useless. So I really paid attention to this. And a couple days after receiving your package is shipped, Scale 75 sent out notices saying you'll need to do the customs paperwork because this is paint. You have to certify that it's non-toxic, or wait for us to do it. So that kind of blew my mind a little bit there too. Of I bought paint. I gave you money, and as the service of I've purchased a product, you box and ship the product to me. And if you have to fill out customs paperwork, because I did this when I ship stuff internationally, you fill out the paperwork so that me, the end client, can receive my product in a timely fashion.
Yep.
I had to do that. Fortunately, I was on top of this because it's wintertime. So I wanted to make sure that, where is it coming in at? Make sure it's not sitting there in a warehouse freezing, blah, 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 whatever. But because of that, instead of it showing up on Friday, when I would have had no problem making sure I brought it inside, it was delayed 3 days on a Monday. And I had something going on that day, and I can't remember. And so I actually ran the risk of not being home when it was delivered, and it's sitting outside in actual freezing temps.
So he kickstarted a product. The product was shipped, sort of. They didn't do any of the paperwork. They didn't do anything. They just expected you to do the work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. Dealing with paperwork in other countries is frustrating. But this is the sort of stuff that a company that's dealing on Kickstarter should be over. And this is not the first time they've kickstarted a product.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
If someone like you or I were doing this, I would probably understand why that would happen. Because, hey, maybe we don't know enough to know how to do it. But also, you find out how to do it before you're shipping, rather than panic, send out messages that you may have to do this because I don't know how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I mean, and I haven't had a chance to use them. You know, I've had a lot of other things going on. I did get the metallic kits though, which I'm super excited for because the range of metallics that I got, and these are not a new product. These are just offered to me at a discount with in conjunction with my Kickstarter. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna buy these at 20% off because let's be honest, this paint that we buy for our hobby, it's not the cheapest paint. So getting two sets of metallics at 20% off, yeah, I jumped on that. So and the package showed up, and 10 minutes later, I was able to bring it inside. So I was not concerned about it freezing. Everything looks liquidy enough. Everything's still, but yeah, I was really, and it's not like this has been sitting on the shelf for 2 years and they email it to me. Like, no, this is something brand new that they just finished manufacturing, just finished boxing, and it looks like this. I don't know how well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does look like it was never mixed to begin with. That doesn't look like it's been separated.
Yeah.
Now, we could be wrong on this, because obviously we weren't involved, but that doesn't look like it's been mixed to me.
Yeah, and I get it that airbrush paint is thinner because it has to go through an airbrush.
Yeah.
But still, that was a little upsetting and disturbing.
I have paints over here that are airbrush paints that have separated. Socks, what have you been up to while I go and find a couple?
So I have been putting together my buddy's Dystopian War stuff. He was not going to get into the game, and then I showed him all the new Scandinavian stuff, and he's like, "Here's $200. Order stuff for me." So that's what I've been doing the last few weeks, is putting together some of his stuff, helping him out. So I put together his Valhalla and his Kaiser class battleships for his couple of armies. So, and his two of his Einhars. So that's what I've been putting together, working on.
Oh, that's the word, Socks. It's Einhajar.
Einhajar, whatever.
So here we go. Here we have a random color that has separated. That was very clearly mixed at some point and has just separated.
So here's one of my color shifts from Vallejo, and I don't know.
Here is another one.
It's very liquidy over on this end, and it's very pigmenty over here, but it's still one solid color.
Depending on the paint you have, you will have them separate into different layers. It may be two, it may be like most of these are three, which is unusual. But like it's usually very different when they separate than what George has got there. And this is why we're saying that looks like it was never mixed to begin with. It looks like they didn't finish the process properly, at least with the ones that you received. It would be interesting to know whether others have got the same thing.
Or they were just expecting them to get mixed in the shipping process.
Shipment.
That's pretty poor business.
Yeah.
So, real quick to finish off, I got my new Warhammer Plus subscription stuff.
Nice.
Oh.
So, and then lastly, I got my Creality Ender 3 S1 Plus.
Yep.
And I'm not upset that I got that Anycubic Cobra Go because, it's the first printer. It was the cheap printer. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
And the motherboard burnt out? No. What went wrong?
No, it was the heat plate.
Oh, that's right.
And after replacing the heat plate, I could never get it leveled because the Anycubic doesn't have like actual leveling knobs on the corners like the Creality does. It's just you bolt it on and it's done.
Yeah.
There's no other than push the button of auto level. That's the only leveling. You can't actually level the plate. And then two, there's at least 3 spots where the brim would not stick to the plate.
Didn't you have a thing where it was like literally the plate wasn't flat as well?
Yeah. So, I've already printed off flawlessly a set of these lovely token holders. And because it is a Creality, there is the Creality specific software for manipulating the codes and slicing and stuff like that, and there are so many bells and whistles. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, and now the fact that I can print the Organizer and the Organizer Leviathan flat instead of having to print the panels vertically.
Yeah, that will make them much better.
So, looking forward to that. The next on the print queue though is a quail egg holder for Casey. So,
fair enough. Socks, what have you been up to?
Mentioned that to George, but you weren't here. So I showed my friend was not going to get into Dystopian Wars at all.
Yeah,
I showed him all the new
everything that you've been doing for a month.
Pretty much, because he ordered $200 worth of stuff, and so I've been putting together.
Why are you building and painting it?
I'm not building his stuff or painting his stuff. I've been building his stuff. So
why is he not doing that? This is
good
not
question.
I'm just asking.
It's a good question. No, I've been. He has some little bit of extremity disabilities with his hands.
That's a good reason not to be doing it. Yep.
So
that's why it was a question and not an accusation.
I mean, he's done stuff in the past, but he's had some health issues recently that have made it difficult.
No, that is a legitimately good reason.
So
it's like
I'm helping him there.
It was not an accusation; it was just a question.
Nope, I get it. But however, this week or this upcoming week, a couple weeks ago, I played a game of Black Seas with some friends at my store.
Oh, yep.
I ordered the Spanish starter set today.
Didn't you already have Black Seas?
Yes, I had the Master and Commander starter set. I'm getting the actual full Spanish Navy starter fleet, which will double what I have now.
You're buying that so that you've got somebody that can lose against the English?
Yes. Me, because I'll be playing against the English. But so I'll be getting that sometime this week. So I'll do an unboxing for that, and
please,
and then I'll start putting together that as well. So that's all I have coming up over the next couple weeks.
Nice.
So Socks, before we started recording, you had a question, and I said I had some ideas. Do you want to?
So if it's easy to see, this is my iceberg from Dystopian Wars. It's hard to see because it's white, but if you can see it, you're seeing some stippling on the paint. I've primed them gray and then went over it with a white as well, and it's stippling like that. I'm trying to figure out how to fix that other than taking it all the way off and restarting it and cleaning it down to its bare resin.
So this is part of the reason why I have gotten away from using spray cans, is because of the inconsistencies.
I've tried this with 2 different white paints, and they both happened on this.
But
same company.
Yep. I'll let you finish first, George, because you already know what I'm going to say, so I assume that you won't go into what you know I'm going to say.
Well, so you mentioned, stripping it down and make sure that the resin is properly cleaned and stuff. So here's my one question for you, Socks. How did the primer look after you were done priming it? Did that look fine?
It looked fine.
Okay. So the next thing is, and this is where contrast paints would be king, is using one of the mediums and not using a rattle can and doing just painting it normally.
Yeah.
With the exception of, I want to say, Games Workshop, and I want to say I had a couple bad experiences with Army Painter.
With normal white paints.
With rattle cans stippling and becoming textured after they dry.
Oh, okay.
And this is why I use Vallejo airbrush primer, so I can either just brush it on, or I can run it through an airbrush. Yeah, and see, rattle cans, they'll either sit for long or something has happened to them and the paint won't mix properly, And it
What was
just
your-
they're such a
What was your primer socks?
crapshoot.
Tamiya?
Okay, that's not what I think then. I was worried that you may have had two different incompatible paints against one another for a second.
Oh yeah,
Because Tamiya is not acrylic. I mean, it is acrylic, but it's not a water-based acrylic.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yep, I agree. Which is why I've been using Tamiya's if I use Tamiya primer. So
Yeah.
Sure.
White is one of these colors that's a little bit difficult too. Like notoriously unreliable out of a can specifically. And it's the reason why white colors tends to be what people that know what they're talking about judge most paint lines on. To the point where Citadel, arguably one of the best paint companies on the market, have no quality white paints. Now, there are people that'll argue with me over that, but you're wrong. All of their whites are bad. Alan, I still will fight you for this.
I will get your back on that, Bruce, because I bought 3 different pots of white Scar, and all of them were garbage the instant I opened them. I've only got one white paint where I've opened it and it was usable, and it was my scale 75 white.
Reportedly, the what's the mono company that everybody raves about?
Monument Hobbies?
Monument, thank you. Monument Hobbies, apparently their titanium white is flawless and brilliant. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about it. I've not had any problems with Army Painters white, apart from the fact that it's very watery, which was a problem with their paint line anyway. Generally speaking, with white paints, the extremes that you tend to get is either that chalky, textury type problem, or they tend to be too watery, and they start separating when they're drying. So there are some that are like really good. The other option that may be worth considering is using a white acrylic ink over the grey. You can find a video on our YouTube channel of me showing how they work straight over a black primer. And it's the reason why I will never buy a white primer ever again. 100%.
There's only one
I
time
will never buy one.
Yeah, the only white primer I will use is one that I can actually control, which would be like, a Vallejo airbrush primer where I can physically look at the paint before it goes on the mini, where I can, just brush it on, or I put it into the airbrush cup and then spray it on that way.
You don't have your airbrush anymore, do you? So that
no.
eliminates
Over my
option.
moves, it's kind of gotten over the moves and humidity and stuff like that. It kind of got put.
Yeah.
Well, and so there's another issue that you have a problem with, Socks, is humidity. Humidity and rattle
that is going
cans.
to be a problem. That is going to be part
Right
of the
now,
issue.
it's not. It hasn't been bad. Right now, the humidity is actually pretty low, and so that's why I tried it today. Is because it was
what do you consider low?
okay, below 85%.
Yeah, with a rattle can, you don't want more than like 50-60% humidity.
Yeah,
That doesn't exist in Florida, though.
Exactly. So
air conditioner might be your friend. I don't know if it goes in that particular room or not, but that would help with that problem.
yeah, but my advice for you, Socks, learn to not rattle can.
yeah.
Vallejo airbrush primers will become your friend.
Because the texture is not easy to pick up on camera, how rough is it?
It's not rough at all.
It's just the colors separating?
It's just the colors separating.
It's just that you said stippling and texture earlier, so I was like, I don't see that. I thought maybe it wasn't picking up.
Do you want a quick fix for that, Socks?
Just try over it white.
I've got a quicker fix for that. It'll give it more of an authentic look. Find the lightest contrast paint you can, and just paint it that light blue contrast. And I'm talking like super light blue.
That's what I was going to go with, this athletic blue.
And then dry brush white over it. Because if you look at an actual iceberg, when you start looking at the solid core of them, they're blue.
Yeah, and that's the effects I'm trying to get. So I might try that with this before I restart everything.
Yeah, I would just try that. Like, just put that contrast on.
Thin it down,
And,
though. Don't use it pure.
Yeah, thin it down some for sure. But get that on, and then just dry brush it white, just to hit those high parts. And
And you
you
can
might
dry
be able
brush
to.
white, despite what I was told when I was learning.
You can dry brush anything.
I know you can. How did you
But
do
you
that?
might.
I dry brush white. What do you mean? You can't dry brush white. Well, I did. It's right there. That's exactly what I did. You shouldn't be able to do that.
For a half second, you sounded like the dude who was talking about the front of the boat that fell off. Well, it fell off. Still one of the greatest comedy bits ever.
Yep. There's a whole series of them.
Yeah, so I'll try that and I'll show you guys some pics. Probably do that tomorrow. Show you guys some pics.
Sounds good.
So I appreciate the advice. But Bruce, what have you been up to?
Hobby-wise, not a lot, honestly. I've not really had the mental capacity for it. I've kind of been like, I know I should, but I've kind of been in one of those slumps for a little while now. I've ever since like October, November, I've kind of been just going in circles of like, yes, I'm really motivated, but now I can't be bothered. So I've kind of just been on the sides. I've been working on the rule set a little bit. I did some art pieces for Entropy City recently. I've redesigned the logo where it's like a motorcycle fuel tank with the handlebars, and it's got like this crossover of weapons on it. Just small little things that I can do in other areas, pretty much. George raised his hand like he was going to say something.
I think he's trying to play with the cat.
No, his other hand. He kind of went like this.
I was going to say, you did do one very important thing, though, Bruce.
I did?
Yes. So, Sox and I did have a weekend my Saturday was Thanksgiving, and I wound up spending with family and whatnot, and Sox, of course, has his
I
own
helped a friend,
very
yes.
nuclear...
That's not hobby,
you took a
vacation.
You took a break.
Somewhat.
You went and did something.
If you want to call it a vacation.
You calling it a break is hilarious.
I'm sorry, hopping on a plane and then driving with a buddy in a car back to,
Look, to be fair,
I mean, that's...
for those that had asked what I was up to, pretty much the answer I kept on giving was that I was going to be entirely stressed the entire time. Thankfully, that's not the way that the weekend went. So, for those that don't know, I flew up to Sydney. I got off the plane at Sydney, and the plan is that we were both arriving within 5 minutes of each other. His plane got delayed, but that's neither here nor there. We had to then get to the train system because basically we had no time. We had to get straight on the train because we had to take a 2-hour train journey to get to this car yard to pick this car up. So, that's going to be stress-free, isn't it? No, it's not. There was a few issues. Sydney's train system sucks on the weekend. Wait.
Really you guys
badly.
have a train system?
Yes.
The joke is we don't really.
Well, Wyoming don't even have electricity.
Sure. Yeah, we do.
I hear they're getting the internet next week, though.
We already have that.
I was expecting things to be very, very stressful because when things have to be tight-knit like that, one thing goes wrong and everything just screws up. And there wasn't really... He'd organised for us to fly in, looking at timetables and then double-checking those timetables. They didn't line up the way they were supposed to. And we think it's because he accidentally was looking at the train during the week, not on the weekend, without realising it. So, and then in the end, his flight was actually 50 minutes late as well, because there was issues. And yeah,
you guys have 4 time zones. You have 4 time zones there, right?
3.
3, okay.
But that's not the problem.
I don't know why that just.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just there was a random question that just popped in my head of like.
Yeah. So yeah, like in the end, I had a friend that was like, well, I can meet up with you and I can drop you at one of the train stations to settle a little bit part of the stress. And the original plan for that was like, that sounds great, but then we learnt of all the issues of the train system on the weekend, and that particular station wasn't going to work. But there was another one that would have worked, and he could have gotten us there. Or if everything had have lined up perfectly, which it didn't, he actually could have taken us a significant amount, and we would have just given him petrol money. But in the end, I met up with this friend in the city. He gave me something that you can see over my head. There's some toys here that had arrived for me that got sent to us by a sponsor for Toy Reel. And he also gave me, which hand is it? The green light in the background. Because I have 2 lights in the background now, you'll notice. He gave me an RGB light that's much more powerful than the really cheap one I bought from Amazon. And the softbox for this light here, which is not installed yet. So
Well,
I got presents.
Speaking of lights, Bruce, I just discovered I could do this.
I can do that
Yeah,
with
he's
one
got
of
the
my
co-
lights too.
He has a cop showing up.
That's just a Wednesday for George.
No. Tuesday. I call that Tuesday.
Okay. Just a day ending in Y. So anyway,
Right.
yeah, in the end, I met up with my mate for like 20, 30 minutes. And then my friend that had been flown in late flew in. He got an Uber into the city. And then we basically, because of everything having been late, in the end, what he had to do was pay for an Uber to take the trip in the end. It's like a $200 Uber trip. It was not very cheap for him. But he didn't have a choice in the end because the train was going to get us too late at that point. We wouldn't have got in until like 11 o'clock at night. So he didn't really have much of a choice in the matter. But it all worked out in the end, honestly. Like the Uber guy was really nice. The car yard guy was really nice. We drove to Gundagai, stayed at Gundagai, and then continued the journey the next
The reason
morning.
why I said that this was important, Bruce, is you got out of the house and you did something that was not what you just said, where you're not motivated, you don't want to, you're trying to. So that's what I was saying is you did something important. You took time for yourself. You were helping a friend.
No,
you did
I
things
didn't do
with
anything for myself at all.
Hey, even if it's stressful, hanging out with friends is still.
Well, it wasn't. It should have been a lot more stressful than it was. It should have been a lot more stressful than it was. It went much smoother than I was expecting it to. So
That's good.
It was a good time. We took that. That's why we took that weekend off because, well, none of us were going to be available anyway. Even if I had been sitting at home, I would have been doing the podcast by myself, and then I wouldn't have been doing it. So
I would have made a way to show up if you were, able to do it.
You would have had
Bruce.
an excuse to get away from the stress.
Actually, we were done festivizing by the time recording would have happened, so it would have been fine. So, are you ready for game talk, or you got anything else, Bruce? Socks?
No, I'm good.
George, you got
I
anything?
haven't really done anything hobby-wise.
Talk nerdy to me.
All right.
So
Have
we're going
fun while
to start
losing.
this with a funny meme that Casey put on my timeline on Facebook that I tagged Bruce in, which probably explains why his dice roll like crap, because he buys dice made by wombats.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
For you, those of you who don't know, wombat poop is cube shaped, and so therefore you just paint it, put some dots on it, you have wombat poop dice. No, having fun while losing.
Yeah. This may have
I
been
have to do
inspired
this.
by a certain conversation that Socks had with us recently. I'm pretty sure I wrote this.
No, I agree, but I have to do this. But I'm
as
doing
in you
demos
have
for
to
Dystopia
lose.
Wars.
Yeah. So
I don't have to, but then I'm like, I feel like I'm not letting you win to then buy into the game. So I should lose and still have fun.
So here's ignoring demos for a second, because that is a different kettle of fish. And yes, you're right. You should be losing when you should almost always lose a demo. Not pure always, but you should almost always lose demos. You should set yourself up to lose quite frequently.
The only time a demo should be is when the person that is learning how to play the game to see if they want to learn how to play it is Bruce, and he's rolling dice and they're rolling for crap, and there's no way the person demoing the game can actually lose.
I actually still lose.
Sorry,
the game.
that's the last knock on your dice rolls I'll make tonight.
I'm not
No,
going
that's
to argue
true.
with you.
Anyways,
There's a reason. There's a reason why my game is D10s and has a completely different system where it's not just the initial roll. I have a push your luck.
No, but I
you
think-
have a push your luck in my game, so therefore it helps me until the dice screw me by going over my amount.
So, having fun while losing.
This is something that a lot of people struggle with. Not everybody, but there is a lot of people out there that struggle with this. I am someone that I would probably argue that I'm somewhere in the middle, where like I lose most of the things I play. I don't actually have a problem with losing, but I can't say that I always have fun. I finish a game because I know I'm expected to, not because I want to.
Right.
yeah.
And there's
I do understand both sides of this argument.
Yeah. So and there are some two different sides to that. Is well, what kind of game is it that you're playing that you're losing?
Yep. And why
You
are
know-
you losing too? Is it because the dice have just screwed you?
Does it-
Because yeah, sure, that's not fun. Or is it because you've messed up and you know you've messed up and there's nothing you can do to fix it now? So that one, I struggle to still have fun.
Well, I was going a little more simple than that. Are you sitting down with your good friend to sit down and play a game and hang out and spend time with your friend and play a game and you're
Yeah.
losing, but you're playing a game with a friend and you're still having fun because you're spending time with that friend?
Yep.
Or are you losing and the guy's a jackwagon and it's a $60 entry fee and it's the first game of the tournament and you got 2 more games to go?
Yes.
This is also why I don't
Yeah.
like tournaments.
But yeah, and because that is the norm for tournaments, unfortunately. In saying that, there are some tournaments that are really fun and designed not to attract those people. But generally, tournaments are competitive, and if you don't enjoy competitive gameplay, you won't have fun.
Yeah.
That's why
Which
I don't-
it almost
that's
sounds
why I
an
don't do
oxymoron of, I don't enjoy competitive play in this game where I'm competing against my opponent.
Yes, but
Yeah.
you can have narrative games though.
So that's
There are
true
some
too.
people.
And-
There are some people that deliberately play games where one army is twice the size of the other one. Now, I think those people are nuts, but like that is legitimately something
Yeah.
that people have fun with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the reason I kind of because there was a conversation that we were having recently, Socks, where somebody was having some struggles, and they were questioning the balance of the game, and you were trying to look for some advice on how to help this guy move forward. Like we had stuff that we will not discuss because it was private and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just kind of like that conversation led me to the thought of actually this might be a good topic of conversation because there's a lot of people that really struggle with this. There are people, and we all know these people, that when they know they're losing, they just instantly stop.
Mhm.
And so, well, I'm not
Yeah.
going to win anyway. We may as well stop now. I can tell you for a fact that if you do that on a table with me, I will never play a game with you again. I can tell you that for a fact. I have never done that. I have conceded a game, which is not the same thing. Because at that, like, if there's a point where, like, it's like there's one round to go, the only thing that's going to happen is I'm going to lose more minis. At this point, I may as well just admit that you've won.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
we have enough time to play another one.
Yeah, it's a difference of like, so your turn, like halfway through, you're just going to wipe out my forces. There's nothing I can do. You've done well, and I've screwed up. So, and I'm
As
going to
opposed
interject
to,
this.
I'm going to go and sook now because you've beaten me, which is something that happens. It legitimately happens.
Yeah.
And I'll throw this one out there too because I saw this in a 40K group, so I can't remember the person's name, and there's more than one person like this. So they're only playing the game anymore is because of how much they've put into the game. They say no matter what they do, they can't seem to win a game.
Yeah,
and believe me, I've run into those people where they don't have the same tactical capabilities that some players do. There's some people where it's just like they will outmaneuver you with a paper bag over their head, and there is nothing you can do to beat them because they are just that tactically sound.
Yep.
And for every person like that, there's a person that's the opposite. And how do you play that game when you're that person and you want to play? You've sunk this investment in, but you can't. It's it is a
It's a legitimate reason to find games frustrating.
Yeah.
I would argue I'm not the most. I certainly can be tactical, but I'm not the best at it. It is one of the things I struggle with. I have never won a game of Drop Fleet Commander. Ever. I have never won a game.
Really.
I've drawn. Oh, actually, no, maybe I have. Did I win one of the... No, I lost at the tournament. I just didn't come last. And Drop Fleet Commander is something where, like, if you're not a tactical player, that's a game that's really going to show you up. I've
It's really
never
hard.
won. To try to combat the way that dice treat me, I've taken lists that are probably a little bit stronger than they need to be to try to counteract that, and still lost. And like, this isn't me sour graping. Like, I'm just like saying, like, I'm not the best tactical wise, so I can get where people are coming from that. I think the thing is that you need to. It's all well and good to say, yes, I want to be competitive, but if that's the only reason that you're playing, then you're not going to have fun if it doesn't go that way. You need to find other reasons to play. Like, it could be, I'm having fun with my friends. Or I'm looking for the really cool moments where something happens that shouldn't. We all have the story of the lone soldier that should have been decimated and somehow took out 3 soldiers before he was killed. Those moments are gaming. Look for them.
I'll share this because this was an entire tournament. This happened. Okay, so we had a mixed doubles blind draw tournament. 1,000 points each. So you created your 1,000-point army, and then you got randomly paired up with someone, and that was your team. You have 2,000 points, and I think there was 5 teams. Maybe there was 6. I can't remember, or maybe no, it was 7 teams. So there was a bye round. So we did an extra round so that everyone got at least 3 games in.
Yep.
Okay. I decided to go with an Outrider unit for my Space Wolves, which was Thunderwolf Cavalry and Wolfen and regular Wolves. So everything I had was melee. Now, it was probably the absolute nastiest, and I will destroy your face melee if I can get into melee range. And in order to do that, I needed to have shooting support. So I got blind paired with the other melee army at the tournament. And without fail, mid-turn 3, we were down at least 50%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, we were usually able to at least get 1 or 2 units into melee, and we would just wreck phase for 1 turn. But and it was fun because we were just like, can we redraw teams? Literally, the only 2 melee armies, and you just stuck us together. Like, do you hate us? What? Can I buy you lunch to like change your opinion of me?
So I have a similar story to this of a tournament that was being run at Games Workshop Camberwell that doesn't exist anymore. And they were running, it was 600 points apiece. And this was during 6th edition. So it's not really the best. It's not really enough to have anything cool, but it's not too small where you can't play a game. And I was playing Blood Angels because it's what I had at the time. And I got paired up with Necrons. Which is during the whole Blood Angels Necrons, everybody hates Matthew Ward because of the story that he wrote and so on and so forth. This is during the peak of that. We called ourselves Team Fist Bump because we just leant straight into the meme, which is so much fun. We came 3rd, I think, and it's the only time I've ever had success in a tournament. I still felt like I was losing a lot of the time, but I wasn't. It was just one of those things where my expectation to lose kind of worked against me, I think. Either that or like he was just helping me out of the ditch with everything that he was doing. Mephisto was amazing in that game.
I was gonna say I think the Necrons carried you in that tournament, Bruce. 'Cause... Sorry, I know I said I wouldn't make dice jokes. Sorry. So here's a great one because I know Socks can share his frustration on this. Socks, did you have fun losing playing your PHR against Levi Shaltari?
No, because you taught him that way.
Oh, okay, before I taught him how to.
George taught him how to make sure it was not possible for you to have fun.
No. I still enjoyed it, even though I was losing a majority of the times. I still had a lot of fun because it was a new game. We were learning the new system and all that stuff. So, I mean, I kickstarted heavily that game. I pretty much kickstarted it twice with a captain's pledge and a commodore's pledge, if I remember correctly. So I had pretty much two
So
starter
you're
sets.
the reason why the campaign was successful and we were able to get this game.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
No,
you,
not
Socks.
really. It wasn't just me.
I'm
But I'm just saying,
guessing
I
that
had pretty much
you
two starter
kickstarted
sets
it-
for every faction.
I'm guessing that you kickstarted it with other people, and that's why your pledge was so high.
Levi was the only one that I kickstarted it with, and he only got the Scourge starter set out of it. I had everything else. I kept everything else. It's still sitting in my
Wow.
closet,
Okay.
unfinished. The only two factions I've built is PHR, UCM, and a little bit of Scourge.
Yep. So a little.
Yeah,
bit
sorry,
of
your
this.
Shaltaris are still unassembled back there. Do you want them?
No.
But
I do want the new Shaltari stuff to like have for my army, but no, don't.
No, I'm good. It was a joke.
No,
'Cause I still plan on building them one day.
what I want is better bases again. I'm still salty about what TT did with bases, but that's a very similar. I think what you were talking with is about Sucks. I think that's a very similar situation as the situation you were in with PHR versus Shaltari, especially after I told Levi, no, check out, just do this and you'll obliterate everything on the board.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, okay, sure, maybe I did ruin the game for you, but, were you still able to find a way to have fun
Maybe.
doing it? Though?
Where's the
Yes.
maybe in that sentence?
Yes, I did still have fun, and I tweaked my list a little bit, and I got close a few times. In beating him, I actually think I did beat him a couple of times, even after you told him that, just because again, my tactics changed a little bit, my list changed a little bit, but then I had, as we all do sometimes, I got some lucky dice rolls, and he didn't get anything, and so
Yeah.
it happens, and so yeah, I still have fun. I mean,
It's literally part of it.
I mean,
To
it's
some
part of
extent-
gaming. You have to learn how to lose and still enjoy it, or else
Yes.
you're going to be miserable for
Yep.
the entire time you're playing.
And like
So,
struggling to enjoy something when you're losing is a problem that you will always have, because that's how the mind works. What I'm about to say is going to sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but let me go with it. To some extent, it's about how your mind works. If the only thing that you're doing is trying to play to be competitive or trying to play to win, then if you don't win, you're not going to have fun because you're only set out to do one thing. If you're playing with friends, unless you're preparing for a tournament, which is a completely different discussion, because if you're preparing for a tournament, you shouldn't be playing to have fun to begin with. Not if it's that sort of tournament. If it is a friendly tournament, then obviously yes. But if you're having narrative games, if you're doing a league type tournament like what you guys were doing recently, Socks. Sorry, that wasn't a tournament. It was like a campaign.
it's an escalation
a grow league
campaign, kind of growing league.
You should be playing to have fun, playing to learn how your army works. And the fact that it doesn't sometimes should be part of the fun. Because especially in a grow league, if you have something that really doesn't work or really does work, you then have the opportunity to work that into the narrative of what your army is. Like, I'll use 40k as the example because it's the obvious one. Like, this one group of Space Marines did really, really well. So I'm going to decorate them just that little bit more with these few extra pieces just because there's something special about this, and it's something, it only matters in my head, but it's something I can have fun with, making them mine. In saying that, not everybody likes customizing things, but you can find other ways to do that.
Yeah.
Trying a tactic that you've never done before, just to see if it works. And if it doesn't, sure. But if it does, you've just learnt something. At the end of the game, asking your opponent what you did wrong. If you can't take feedback, don't ask. In a tournament setting, unless you're like really running late, that is something you should always do. Is discuss the game, give each other a couple of pointers about, like I saw that you were doing this, but I think if you did this, it might actually work a little better. Now, I mean, if you've just gotten decimated and you have nothing feedback that could, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have quality feedback to give, but it's probably less reason for them to listen to you. But it's still a conversation that you should always have. It's how you learn. Yet people don't notice their own mistakes. It's just a thing that people don't do. It's a flaw in the way that our minds work. It's why you have things like spell check. Because if you're writing a document, you won't notice the mistake.
Yeah.
That's why people have editors. So, yeah, it's a hard one because it's never going to be... Like, there is no way of fixing this problem. It's just something that people have to deal with. You are going to lose sometimes. It's supposed to be part of the fun. Nobody enjoys losing.
Well, I think it's part of the learning experience, too, of the game. Because especially as a new player, you're getting a brand new player into the hobby. You're not going to win all the time.
No.
But those times that you do win, you're going to learn a lot. But those times you do lose, you're going to learn a lot more. So
I think it's probably fair to say, too, there is a percentage of the balance, everybody arguing about balance all the time. And yes, we've been on that discussion bandwagon a few times. But there is a percentage of that community fighting about that sometimes that are actually the people that just want to win all the time. And things aren't balanced because they didn't win.
Or they're chasing the meta and
if you're chasing the meta, you're not having fun.
I went always against the meta for Star Wars Legion.
Yep.
And I still had fun.
Yeah.
And I won a couple of times.
If that's not the sort of person you are, you're not in it to have fun, then hey, that's fine. But that also means that you have to accept it when you don't lose, when you don't win.
But he also plays Sheltari for Drop Zone Commander, so...
I do. That's what I started with.
Yeah, it's true. He's a horrible
but then
and what'd you learn? What'd you learn? Like, oh, I'll just do this and...
Shenanigans are fun.
What did he learn? The same thing that the rest of us learn. Anybody that plays Sheltari is a horrible person.
I am not a horrible person.
Sorry, no, I take that back. You're worse than that.
I may be socially unacceptable in certain circumstances.
Saying that he's a horrible person isn't fair to those people that are horrible people. George is worse than
that. Try.
Should we move on to upcoming events? I think we're good here.
Tournaments, demos, conventions, that kind of stuff.
I'm going to start with something a little bit out of the ordinary. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, you should. For the entire month of December until December 22nd, we are unboxing the Mantic Barroom Brawl.
Bruce is unboxing.
Yes, the Mantic Barroom Brawl Advent Calendar. We're up to day 10 at the moment. We have a reel going up every day of the month of what that day's opening is. We've had some terrain, we've had some minis, we've had a little bit of everything. I just dropped one of them on the floor. So you should be subscribed. Keep an eye out. Hey, help get our views up. That would be nice. Otherwise, we also have... So the Melbourne Figure Painters Collective, they meet on the last Sunday of every month at the Kathleen Syme Library. So that's 251 Faraday Street in Carlton from 12 till 5. When is the last Friday this month? I think it's when I'm not in the state. Yes, so I will not be there this month. I will have to try for January. I'm literally not in the state, so I can't go. Danger Close tournament. So it's a Drop Zone Commander tournament. It's a 1,750 point tournament. Takes place on the 28th of January at the Bristol Gaming Collective. You can get details for that at eventbrite.com. And then finally, the Drop Fleet Commander community has a space station competition. Socks, do you have space stations with you, or did you forget? Hey, there we go. So there's two categories. The first category is a build for the competition, where you enter with sprue bits and you build the station you get, and the best looking station wins. This is being voted on by the Drop Zone Commander community admin team, as well as Dave, the writer of the actual game. The second half of the competition is a painting competition, where if you already have a space station built, you can paint it for the competition and enter it into that part. So this is ongoing. You have to build and paint it until the 31st of January. There's prize support by TT Combat. We definitely recommend getting involved. The space station kits are just so much fun.
They're nice.
Also, I correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't TT Combat selling the space station kit by the sprue right now for this competition? So you don't have to buy an entire kit. You can just get the one sprue.
Yep.
Now, if you're in America, that's not feasible to ship it. But so if you're over in Europe and shipping's cheaper, that is an option to get into those. You can just buy the one sprue.
Or if you're wanting to do an order anyway, you can just add one sprue to the kit.
There's that too, I suppose.
Yeah. If you're wanting to buy it from the US, then you should buy it from Valhalla Hobby, because they have Drop Fleet Commander and other things. Valhalla Hobby is a sponsor for the community. It is a sponsor for the podcast. They are pretty much the reason why we have that we have
GettingTable.com.
GettingTable.com.
They're a gaming store. They are in Verona, Wisconsin. They are a decently sized store. The thing that sets them apart that I really like, and I mention this all the time. I mean, yes, they've got really nice prices, and that's lovely. But the thing that I really like is that they have a real concentration of actual niche indie games.
Yep.
Sure, Warhammer is really popular. Sure, D&D is really popular. But you know what? Some of the stuff people don't look at is actually more interesting. There is so many good games in the indie scene right now. And if you're only paying attention to the big guys, you are missing out. Whether it's Bushido, Drop Fleet Commander, Dystopian Wars, Wild West Exodus. There are so many great games.
Black Seas, Black Powder.
Just try one of them. They have pretty much anything that you want. Go and check them out. ValhallaHobby.com. If you use the code GT2305 at checkout, you'll get 5% off. We get nothing from that. It just helps them. It helps them know that you've come from us, and it gives you a bit of a discount, which is always nice. Where can people find us, George?
They can find us at www.patreon.com/gettingtable. Become a supporter for $2 a month and get early access to the video versions of everything we do. Is it 3 days early?
It's at least 24 hours early.
At least 24 hours. Gotcha. For $2 a month. That also helps us with our SoundCloud, our website, pretty much anything we do. Also, the more you support us, the more we can support you with giveaways and things of that nature. Of course, the website that we talked about is gettingtable.com. Everything we post, we will go through facebook.com/gettingtable. This is where you'll find the links to all the audio and video podcasts when we post things. Videos are hosted, obviously, at youtube.com/gettingtable. Please give us a like and subscribe. We are getting closer and closer every month to that 1,000 subscriber threshold, and then more things start happening for us. Of course, you can email us at gettingtabled@gmail.com. comments, questions, concerns, anything for the community, or questions for us, please send us stuff. We will look at it. We will read it. We'll talk about it. We have the Discord. Link is where, Bruce?
Link is in the chat, and it also appears on screen.
There you go. You can jump in there. You can talk with us, and we can, other members of the community. You can find us on X and Instagram at Getting Tabled. Then there's also Bruce. When he occasionally does it, he does have a Twitch. I don't know if you're still talking about that.
I do have the Twitch. It's kind of more of a social thing at this stage. I'm not doing regular weekly streams anymore. It's just I'm only going to be doing it when I'm in the mood for it now.
So pay attention to that. That's twitch.tv/JasonTheBruce. You can hang out with him while he does some gaming. And then as a side note and a mention with the channel, Bruce does another YouTube channel called Toy Reel, where he unboxes, toys, as the name implies.
Yep.
That is youtube.com/toyreel.
Yep.
Did
It's
I
a whole
miss
group of guys
anything?
there. The strategy there is very similar to the one here. Like, they're not doing it for money. They're not doing it. It's just passionate people talking about what they're passionate about. I've been unboxing quite a lot of these beast boxes behind me, which are like transformers that transform into cubes. So that owl, there's a giant squid. There's a few other things in the case there. All of them transform down into like the same 5 centimeter cube, which they're a lot more fun than they sound. Trust me. There's a video going out in the channel this week of me unboxing a Santa Claus action figure, which is just gorgeous. And lots of other
Krampus?
stuff. They do make a Krampus, but it's not what I'm unboxing.
I'm just curious. Socks, you got anything else?
I'm good. It's been fun.
I don't have anything else. Bruce?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matyas at soundimage.org.